Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to my channel where we talk about quick and easy, delicious, keto-friendly food. In today's video, we're gonna make a succulent and super crispy pork belly, or called Siu Yuk. This is one of those favorites that you can find at a Cantonese restaurant or an Asian deli, but it's super easy to make at home. So let's go. So it all starts with the pork belly. You want to find a good piece from your local butcher shop or grocery store. Now what you're looking for is a good layering of lean and fat all across the pork belly. Now the size of the pork belly doesn't matter so much as long as it is enough to feed whatever number of people you're trying to feed. Here I have maybe 3 pounds of pork belly. So this recipe is all about the crispy skin. So I'd like to score the skin about 2 finger width sections. I'm only going in about 1/4 inch deep, just enough to expose some fat so when we end up crisping the skin, the oil can get in there, but also to make it much easier to slice once it's cooked. As that skin becomes crispy, it tends to crack as you try to cut the pork belly once it's cooked. Here you can see the sliced skin. It only goes just about halfway through that fatty skin layer. Now we're going to do the same on the underside, on the meaty side. Same thicknesses, basically slicing about 1/4 inch deep. And this is so that our rub can penetrate, but also makes for easier carving when done. Now I'll also go sort of lengthwise a couple cuts just to make those smaller pieces easier to cut later on. Also, that's more surface area for the rub to penetrate. So there you go, pretty almost pre-sliced pieces of pork belly, although the entire piece is still very well intact and now ready for our rub. So first, I like to put about 1 tablespoon of Chinese cooking wine and just smear it all over. If you don't have Chinese cooking wine, you can use regular wine, white wine probably works best. Now this serves 2 purposes, to both tenderize the meat and also get rid of any unwanted smells. Then I'll season with some salt. About 1 teaspoon of salt is used here. Next, we have some white pepper. This is a stronger flavor than typical black pepper and is a key ingredient to a lot of Chinese cooking. Here I'm using about 1 teaspoon as well. And lastly, about 1 teaspoon of 5-spice powder. This is a very traditional flavor used in Chinese cooking and especially for this dish. So those are the basic ingredients for this dish. Now I do tend to add a bit more flavoring, so I add a little bit of cayenne pepper, some ground cumin, as well as some paprika, just for my taste. But you can feel free to add whatever makes sense for you. Let me know in the comments what other seasonings you like to put on your crispy pork. And lastly, some dried onion powder and also granulated garlic, just to give that extra flavor that I like. And there you go, a well-seasoned pork belly. Now I'll just rub in all those seasoning and spices into the crevices that we made earlier, just to make sure all that flavor can penetrate as deeply as possible into the pork belly. So after a quick massage, we're ready to flip it over, and we want to make sure that there is no seasoning left on the skin side, as that will burn when we cook that at high heat. If there is some seasoning, it's okay. Just take a slightly damp paper towel and wipe it off. And that's it. Almost ready for the fridge. So I'll place this on a sheet of aluminum foil, and here comes some origami fun. What we're gonna do is fold up the sides so that we are essentially creating a shallow tray that is exactly the height of the slice of pork belly. And what this does, it keeps the juices continuing to contact the pork belly so that whatever juices come out while we let this brine essentially or marinate in the fridge, that they get reabsorbed into the pork belly so we don't lose any of that flavor and moisture. What we do want is for that skin to dry out. So here I'm just brushing the top with some white vinegar, and that will help draw out some moisture as well as dry out that skin. I'm also going to sprinkle some salt on here, probably a teaspoon or so, and this is to help further dry out the skin, but also to flavor that skin. I'll let this now marinate in the fridge for about a day.
The next day.
So it's been about 24 hours, and look at that dried skin. Here, have a listen. We're ready for the oven. We'll preheat the oven to 350 degrees. The oven is hot, and we will throw it in for about 90 minutes. What we want is for the pork to cook slowly and all that fat to start to render and to get to an internal temperature of 170 degrees. During this time, that skin should really dry out. Okay, it's at 170 degrees and it took exactly 90 minutes. So time to pull the pork out. Look at that. That is a pretty sight. Some of that fat has started to render and the top of that skin is starting to dry out and brown. Now we'll let this rest for 10-15 minutes just so all the moisture can be absorbed back into the meat. And technically this is ready to eat. I mean, it is cooked, but we do have one last step to make that super crispy, crackly, crunchy skin. Here you could see the delicious, moist, and juicy pork that is, just so mouth-watering. Now we'll set this aside and let's make sure we don't throw out all those drippings and juices. We're gonna use that to fry the skin. Here I'm gonna slice off the end piece just to show you how nicely layered and cooked this pork belly is. Look at that. Incredibly juicy and moist. You can see the fat starting to render. This is already going to be one delicious slice of heaven. Time for the fry. Here I have a cast iron skillet and putting in about half a cup of oil. Now you want enough oil to coat the entire bottom of the skillet so that when you put in the pork, it does create a frying environment. And I'm just using a regular canola oil here. Any high smoke point oil will work. Here come the drippings and all that rendered fat. This does not go to waste. We put that straight into our oil and frying medium. So now we put the pork in, skin side down into the oil. We can now turn on the heat and let that oil slowly warm up, and what happens is it'll gradually render even more of that fat down before it starts to fry. Let's not forget the piece I cut off earlier. Not only did it not fit in the pan if I didn't cut it off, but it also makes a nice little piece where I can continually check on the doneness of the skin without lifting out the entire slab of pork. Listen to that sizzle. That is music to my ears. So we'll let this fry for 7 to 10 minutes, checking periodically with that smaller piece to ensure that the skin is browning but not burning. You can tilt the pan every now and then just to make sure that the oil is evenly coating all the skin. I did speed up the video, so we're not waiting for the full time. This fry took me exactly 8 minutes to complete. All right, using our small piece, we can see that we are done. It's a nice golden brown, so we're ready to take this out of the pan. Look at that, nicely golden brown, bubbly, crackly skin. This is a perfect doneness for a crispy pork. It's all about that skin. Look at all the tiny little bubbles, the crackling pieces, and that skin has puffed up almost double or tripled in height. You can hear just how crispy that skin has become. Time to slice it up. Oh, that knife went through just like butter. You can see how moist and juicy that meat has become. And with that crackling skin, that should be a wonderful mouthfeel. You can just hear how crispy that skin is as the knife cuts through. I'm gonna bite into a piece just so you can hear how crispy that skin is. The skin is super crispy and that meat is incredibly moist, flavorful, and juicy. Try another piece. All right, I can stand here and eat this all day, but it's time to slice it up and plate it for our guests. Here we've sliced the pork into bite-sized pieces. I like to add a little hoisin sauce as a dipping sauce for guests. If you are looking for a lower sugar alternative, mustard works great here. And a little fresh rosemary as garnish. And there you have it, my take on a classic Cantonese dish of crispy pork belly. It is incredibly tender, super moist and flavorful, and with that crispy, crackling skin. This is always a huge hit in my home, and I hope it will be for you too. That's it for another video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and have a great day.